How's it going, guys? Hayden with Carolina Quality Buyers. I'm going to show you guys how we like to underwrite deals here at CQB. So I have a lead sheet from our sales team right now. This is just hot off the press, so I'm going to go ahead and write her up here, kind of walk you through the process, and then we have an audience back here that will be able to ask some questions, and then we can do some live Q&A, if you will. So we got 1805. Hemlock Avenue, and that's in Gastonia, NC. All right, so what I did is I went ahead and pulled that up. I will pull that up on Zillow. If you're not an agent, you can definitely use Zillow or any other Redfin, Realtor.com, any app, and you can get 99% of the information you will need off of that. It's not as in-depth as the MLS, but it is enough to underwrite a deal to make an offer on. All right, and by the way, MLS stands for multiple listing service, so that allows you to, it's what realtors use and agents to buy and sell homes. It's the central hub. All right, so it appears to be, I always like to look at the bed and bath count and then the square foot. So what we'll do, online, it has it as a 1 bed, 1 bath. So it's a little small. It's actually very small. It's 938 square foot. So one thing to look at as an investor is you're comparing these two numbers here. The fact that it's almost 1,000 square foot home and it's only 1 bedroom leads me to believe I could squeeze at least 1 more bedroom in there, if not 2. So as far as a return on investment, that's gonna be huge. So we're not gonna walk inside this house or get any interior pictures, but just from the outside, I already like it, and the fact that we could do a value add proposition there. So now that we have that, what I'll do is, if I don't know the seller's asking price, I'll try my best to get that. Looks like my guys got asking price of 120. Asking price of $120,000. All right, so let's see if that is good or not. Some of these notes say doesn't need any repairs and it's in great shape. We'll see about that. Ooh, I'm not gonna dive into this, but later down here in the notes, he's looking for a creative finance option. So that's a huge way to purchase these. So I'll run this as a cash purchase for most investors. That's kind of their first investment is cash, but we can take a look at the very end what we could offer for owner finance. All right. So what I'll do now is, now that I have this initial information, I can go, and I'm just gonna do a really brief one. We don't have to dive into too crazy, but I will go on, again, Zillow. I prefer the app, just so easy to fly through it. The computer, I'm not as good at it. So let's see, recently sold. All right, so what I'll do is on the app, I will go into the search bar. I'll type in this property, and then I'll back out till I can get to the map. Once I'm at the map, I'll hit filter, and then we'll select the beds. So do 1 bed minimum, and then I'll bump it up to 2 beds just to see what the comps in the area are, to see if we do add a bedroom, what the value might be. Scroll down, and in here you can select homes, townhomes, apartments, land, multifamily. I'm just gonna leave all of those checked. It's not gonna really affect it too much. Square foot minimum, I'll go above and below about 200, 250 square foot, whatever's the like most sensible value here. So our options are 750 as a minimum, and we're at 938. And then our second option for the max is, I'd probably choose about 1250. That's gonna give us our range of square foot, and we're kind of right there in the middle. So I can compare those properties and see, well, if it's a smaller property and still sold for this much, it's a good comp, or if it's a bigger property and it sold for a little more, I can bump that down.
If the property was 1,300 square foot, would you consider that as a comp when you're looking at properties, or is that a cutoff on how far you want to go outside of the square footage?
Good question.
250 the max you would want to go?
I try to stay with pretty close, especially on these smaller properties. If you're getting into a 4, 5, 6 bed, those big houses, it doesn't matter as much. If you're 3,000 to 4,000 square foot, you know, you can get a wider margins, but with something as small as a 2, 3 bedroom property, I like to try and keep those numbers as close as possible, or else it's gonna throw my numbers off. If I'm comparing a 1,000 square foot house to a 2,000 square foot house, it's just, that's not a good comp. So 1,300 is pushing it if it's the only thing you have. And what you can do is just divide it by, you know, the price per square foot. So you could find the price per square foot there. And then if it's, you know, $100 per square foot, then you can just compare that to that, multiply it out, if that makes sense. And you can just get an approximate value of what that property might be. So now that I'm still on the app, I've selected my size criteria. I've already selected my bedrooms. I don't care as much about bathrooms. As a homeowner and a buyer, yes, I would care about bathrooms, but for comps, it's not as big of a deal for an investor. All right, then this is probably one of the more important ones, especially in a changing market. I look at sold in last. What that means is how many days since the properties in that area have sold. So remember, we're looking for properties in the same neighborhood that have sold. So let's see. If you want it, the closer you can get to the shorter time frame you can get, the more accurate comps will be. So I would love to do 30 days since the last sale and see what those look like. But since it's probably not that hot of a market, I'm gonna do 6 months and see what the market looks like there. All right, so right off the bat, we have 6 results. We have a property. Let's just go down. All right, so this property right here. So we have 601 North McFarland Street. That sold for $127,500. So that's already a bigger property. That's a 2-1. And then I have another 2-1. So this one is 607 North Pear Street. And that is a 2-2. This is 1,100 square foot. And this one up here is 768 square foot. So it's cool to see a smaller house, 700 square foot, compared to 900 square foot, but it has an extra bedroom. So that goes right back to my point, is we can add a bedroom there somewhere. This one's a 2-2, 1,100. This one's a little bigger, not as much of a comp, but this one sold at $150,000. And let's take a look. What I like to do is I like to see what the finishes are of those properties, if they have pictures. So this one here, I'm scrolling through, looking at the pictures on the listing. It's got refinished hardwood floors. The walls look a little messed up. They could use some paint. It's definitely not a 10 out of 10 renovation. I can see we got baseboards missing in this picture. The kitchen looks like it's painted cabinets, so it probably has some of the original cabinets in here and they just painted them. They look all right though. I mean, this is definitely rent ready, so we can definitely use this one as a comp. And I'm looking at this guy here, so it's close. So yeah, bathrooms, tile, it's not winning any awards, but it's definitely great. So I'll use those as our comps. We have some more in here that sold for much less, but they don't have any pictures, which leads me to believe that they sold off market. So these are probably my 2 closest comps. So we have an asking price of $120. So as an investor, what we typically like to do is multiply the ARV by a multiplier. So if I'm saying the ARV is X amount. Let's figure that out. So what is AR? Oh, do you have a question?
I think you were about to answer it. My question was, what is ARV?
ARV, after repair value. So that's the after repair value. So that is, we're basically taking a look at these properties. That's why we got all these comps, and we're trying to find the after repair value to see, you know, what we could sell this home if we renovated it or flipped it or whatnot, whatever our exit strategy is. A lot of people like to do, you know, the buy and rent method. Well, they're actually rent these out. So then we have to see what our loan might look like and take all that into account. We won't get into that today, but let's get to what the after repair value is. So judging this one is a little bigger, this one's a little smaller. They're both 2 bedrooms. This one does have some good square foot. So I'm gonna just kind of shoot there in the middle and say, if we add a bedroom, our ARV is probably about 130. So let's say that that's 130,000. So we're sitting all right. They want 120, ARV is 130. The gentleman says, looking here, says there's no repairs needed. Like I said, we'll have to get pictures of the property and actually walk it, maybe do an inspection to verify. But here's where we sit right now. So what I'll do is I'll take that 130. If we were gonna buy this, if my team was gonna buy this property, 130 times 0.7. So we take the ARV times 0.7. Now, that's just the multiplier to make sure the flip or the renovation is gonna work. Because if we go in here and pay 120, 130, well, that's just an on-market property. That's not good for an investor, doesn't make any sense. So we have to actually make money off of this. Go ahead, question?
How did you choose 0.7? Like what does that represent?
0.7, us investors kind of just use that. You can use anything you want, really, but the reason we use that is it gives us enough margin to use expensive money to purchase the property. It gives us enough margin to kind of cover any unforeseen things like, you know, foundation issues, all of that. And it costs, closing costs, everything, time listed, holding costs, all of those things cost money. So for us to make money, there has to be a margin for us. So I could dive into exactly all those numbers, but I'm gonna kind of leave that as it sits for now.
Would you change that number if it needed a lot of repairs, or would you factor in the repairs in a later time?
Yeah, oh, good question. Yeah, so I'll get to that. So this is the initial calculation, and then what we do is ARV times 0.7. I think PEMDAS has us do that, minus repairs. Equals, I'll just bring this down here, our purchase price or our MAO. What does MAO stand for? Good question. It stands for max allowable offer. So that's the max amount of money we can pay for this property. So let's do that calculation. So I have 130,000, the ARV, times 0.7. That gives us 91,000. We don't have to write that in, minus repairs. So this is another thing, we could do a whole video on repairs and calculating repairs. But in my area, 1,000 square foot home, a full renovation is gonna cost me, and I'm talking maybe a little bit of flooring issues, a new roof, some HVAC work, maybe some windows and doors, a full renovation. Not a complete rebuild, but full renovation is gonna cost anywhere in the range from 50 to 80,000, depending if it has termites or water or foundation issues. He says it doesn't need anything. We know that's a lie. It probably needs, at least every property needs something. Probably gonna need at least $10,000, $20,000 if it's just a paint job. So we will say that repairs, just without seeing anything, we'll estimate repairs for $20,000 to $30,000.
Considering you want to add a bedroom to this, how much would the bedroom fall into repairs, or what would be a typical amount to add a bedroom?
Oh, good question. So what is the cost of various things for this repairs? So in this equation, anything that we do to that property in the stabilization period is going to classify as a repair. So that would be adding bedrooms, adding bathrooms, new flooring, new roof, all the stuff we're going to do to get to the point where we can sell the property is going to be built into that repairs value. People also might say, you know, minus holding costs, minus all of these things. I just like to, if we can get it to work with this number, the 0.7 has a large enough margin to kind of carry a lot of that stuff for us. So if I say, we'll just use 20,000, minus 20,000 is $71,000. So if I was going to flip that property or wholesale it or renovate it for a rental, that's the number I would offer them right off the bat. So as you can see, we have a disparity. We have about a $49,000 disparity there. So, you know, 120 is probably not a terrible price to start at, but if we want to make this and make, you know, 20, 30 grand, we're gonna have to come in a little lower. Now, really quickly, he said he would do owner finance. So owner finance or creative finance, people call it different things, allows us to purchase the property without getting bank financing. So that opens a lot of doors for us. So if he wants to do 120,000 with not using bank financing, that's great. We might be able to actually make that offer work. So looks like he wants 120,000 purchase price, 20% down, 6% interest rate. Those aren't the best terms. I like to get a little lower, especially that down payment, that hurts us. So we still have to be less than his purchase price to purchase that with creative finance. But I'll do another video on that. All right, so now we have our max allowable offer. We're sending that to the seller. Great. Now, another thing people want to know is, does this work as a rental? Well, let's look at that really quickly. Let's take a look at what a rental looks like. What I'll do is I'll log back on here. I was off for a second. I love to use Bigger Pockets. I'm a pro member. It's a great platform. Anybody in the real estate space knows this is where you want to do a lot of your research. They have a great podcast. They got great stuff. Part of their pro package allows you to do a rental calculator. So what I've done is I've typed in this address, 1850 Hemlock Avenue, and then I've basically searched in that area, and it does it all for me, and it says median rent is $1,075 a month. So that's pretty decent, especially if we're getting this property at potentially this price. What a really quick gauge of, is this going to work as a rental, is something called, let's see, I'm running out of space here, something called the 1% rule. Does anybody know what the 1% rule means, or you want me to explain that?
I think we're good.
Okay, I'll explain the 1% rule because
No, actually, could you explain it? I might have a few questions on it.
Yeah, perfect. So 1% rule basically says you'll take the rent should be 1% of the purchase price or the value here. So we'll take, and this is basically your all-in number. So if I have to do 71,000 plus 30,000 repairs, I'm getting this at about $100,000. So 1% of $100,000 equals $1,000. So we compare those, and it works. Our rent is more than the 1% rule, which means after all of the expenses, after our mortgage, our taxes, our insurance, any capital expenditures, a repair budget we have in, or a vacancy we have into this property as a long-term rental, it should still cash flow. So what I can do is I'll actually just really quickly, we're not going to analyze it any further than this, but what I'll do is I will see what the mortgage might look like on a property like this in this market. So let's see, purchase price. We'll just wrap everything into there. We'll say 71,000 plus our repairs. Let's just say a nice even $100,000 is how much we're going to purchase this for. So with a down payment, everything built in, it looks like our mortgage with taxes and insurance would be $670 a month. So you compare those two, again, our mortgage, insurance, escrow, all of that stuff is going to be less than our monthly cash flow. So some investors will say, well, it looks like you got $400 in cash flow. Well, we didn't really affect, what if the tenant doesn't pay for 1 month? That's minus $1,000. Divide that out, you're making significantly less. So in our calculations, I'll do another video about how to basically underwrite a long-term rental. But as it sits right now, we probably, after everything, still cash flow on this. It wouldn't be making us a ton of money, but it'd be a great property to add to the portfolio at this purchase price. Any final questions?
Given that there's such a discrepancy between the owner's asking price and the MAO, what are some techniques that you may use to try to convince him that the property is really worth $71,000, not $120,000?
So in this market right now, it's starting to shift. It used to be a seller's market about a year ago. Just for reference, it's the very beginning of 2023. So everybody in 2021, 2022 saw seller's market. It was the best seller's market people have seen in years. But right now it's starting to shift. So we're getting people that might be sitting on a property that needs some work. They still want, market price for it. It's still, really close to what it should sell for, all fixed up. So these properties are going to sit for a long time. So what my company does is we come in, we find people that need help. They need value added to this transaction. So if a realtor comes and lists this property, it might sit for 2 months. We're going to come in and say, hey, we'll get this deal done in a couple weeks. We'll take care of you. We do explain we do have to make money. We're transparent, we're ethical, but we try to add value to the seller and help them through this process. Some sellers are out of state. They don't even know the condition of their property, or they're in the hospital or whatever. We'd still like to ethically go in there and find the price that the maximum price we can pay while still making money and protecting our team and our investments and still helping them out. So there's tons of different scripts and various negotiation tactics we can use, but we can get into that later. As a company of Carolina Quality Buyers, we really try and help them along in their home sale process. So we'll have to have some discussions about that, especially as their home sits for months and months and months and doesn't sell. All right. Well, I appreciate it, guys. If there's any other questions.
Yeah, I got one. I know you mentioned saying, you're going to go more in depth about the 1% rule and some other things you talked about. How do I go about staying in touch or looking at some of these videos that you might post? Where could I find those at?
Yeah, so give us a follow. This is probably going to get posted to our YouTube channel, and we might pull some scenes out of this and post it on Instagram or Facebook, YouTube Shorts. But I'd like to really dive in on YouTube and kind of walk you guys through the in-depth process behind a lot of these things. So give us a follow. I'm going to be under my personal brand for YouTube. It's going to be HJ Operative. I don't probably know how to spell that, so we'll put it up there on a link. And then for our Instagram and our Facebook, it's going to be Carolina Quality Buyers. Super easy to find, super easy to spell. So find us there. That's where you can find us at. Cool. And we'll be putting out a lot more content. So I appreciate you guys watching in. All right. Bye.